Hi, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're located, and welcome to today's webinar, Drone Cleaning in Action. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And before we get started, I just have a couple quick housekeeping items. First, please feel free to submit any questions you have in the chat throughout the presentation, and we'll collect them and address them during the Q&A session at the end. And then second, today's webinar is being recorded and a copy of the recording will be shared with everyone who registered. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to our presenters, Brandis and Tyler, who will walk us through the real-world drone cleaning applications and how they're transforming building maintenance. Brandis and Tyler, the floor is yours. Want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Madison. Really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us today. It looks like we've got a pretty good group on the phone. Just quick introduction. My name is Brandis Trickett. I'm the Vice President of Sales for Valcourt Group. I represent the U.S. as far as our sales organization. I've got about 16 years in sales leadership, mostly in the facilities maintenance world, a little bit of time with Aramark, a couple of janitorial companies, and I really spent the last 2 years here at Valcourt Group, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about the company as well as our drone deployment and some just general basic knowledge for you regarding this best practice in case you're not sure of it, you've used it before, or maybe you just need some new information for your own facility. And I'll pass it over to Tyler to introduce himself.
My name's Tyler. I'm with ANSI. We're a part of the Valcourt Group out in the Midwest. I've been in the industry for about 16 years, and I'm a Part 107 certified drone pilot, here to answer your questions and kind of give you a rundown of where drones can be applicable to your buildings.
All right, so I'll tell you guys a little bit about the Valcourt Group and give you a quick introduction into drone cleaning in general. But I think majority of the time we're really going to spend in our project profiles. I think what would mean the most to me would be sort of seeing the proof in the pudding, right? Seeing those before and after pictures of what that drone capability is. But just to give you a little bit of background on the Valcourt Group, we are made up of a total of 24 brands across the United States. Most of those are acquisitions. The Valcourt Group originated in McLean, Virginia. And after joining a private equity team, we have expanded across the U.S. to be the largest national provider for commercial window cleaning and waterproofing. And we don't have those services everywhere today, but the goal is to continue to grow both organically and inorganically across the U.S. and adding locations where we can currently service you in both of those capacities. Some of our markets have window cleaning and building maintenance today. Some have waterproofing and some have both, but we currently service 19,000 properties over those 30 states. And I'll show you in the next slide the brands that represent that Valcourt Group. So in 2021, our private equity firm looked across the US and helped us to start to grow this business. And these are some of the companies that are part of this group today. So if you're doing business with us today across the US, you're probably getting an invoice from one of these companies, but rest assured, we operate the same way across the US. So the product and service that you're seeing in California is represented the same way that you would in Boston, for example. And our goal is really to continue to grow both organically and inorganically across the US and be the largest national provider across the US. This gives you a little bit of an idea of our coverage area today, and Madison did a nice job of putting a little drone icon in the areas where we currently have drone deployment today. And you might see a little bit of gray space there in the kind of west side of the United States. And it doesn't mean necessarily that we don't operate in those areas. A lot of our national MSAs will drive us to do business in that area and some of our existing partnerships. If you've got a project in one of those areas and you're unsure, you can absolutely reach out to us and we'll let you know if it's an area that we'd be willing to travel to potentially help out and do business in those areas. But everywhere that you see the drone today, the little icon is where we're operating that today. And we do travel with the drone in case you have an idea of, hey, would that support my area? It doesn't look like it's super close. It may be an opportunity for us to be able to travel and take care of that particular area. So what is drone cleaning exactly? It's not necessarily, as great as a human being that might be cleaning your window, but it's a great alternative solution for a lot of our customers today. If you have a building that's limited on anchors, right? Maybe you can't afford to get your anchors replaced, or maybe you can't for whatever reason based on the structure of that building. The drone is a great alternative. Maybe you're a facilities manager over a building where you don't have a really large budget and you haven't traditionally been able to do window cleaning on a regular basis. Maybe it's an opportunity to take a look at the drone. Challenging architecture. This one is probably what we see the most. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there's a Hyatt in downtown Charlotte, and we probably clean the windows on that building for a pretty reasonable rate, but it has a really unique architecture built into it, where there's a group of windows of about 20 that it would probably cost about $15,000 just to clean those windows. Didn't make a lot of sense for them. But you take a look at this drone opportunity that we introduced to Charlotte, and we were able to actually do that section of windows for around $2,000. So pretty cost-effective option here if you have those unique architectural plays. And then it also doesn't cause much disruption. So if you're a facility such as a hospital or a hotel or a dorm at a college or university, the drone is fairly quick. It's going to be much faster than your traditional window cleaning, facade pressure washing solutions. And we can be on and off that building relatively quick with just a few technicians to be able to support that drone on that facility or on that building. We deployed this 2 years ago. So we have worked out all of the kinks. We've tested it in several markets. We actually have our own licensed pilots that work for the Valcourt Group. We've refined our processes. We know what works. We know what doesn't. We are insured and licensed. So we're at a really great place where I think we can, share this and exactly what it's capable of and be really upfront and honest with our current clients and our future prospects on, is this going to work for your facility? Or maybe it's going to work in conjunction with our other standard window cleaning processes. And our entire field sales organization is designed to come on site, walk your facility, take a look at your building, and make those recommendations. Most of the time, it's going to be a group of potential services and products that we might use. And we're designed to look at your facility and come up with the most cost-effective solution for you. And many times it includes our drone cleaning. So what are the applications that drone cleaning works for? Most definitely works for windows, works for roofs, solar panels, facades. It does a really nice job on facade cleaning. Tyler's going to share a little bit more detail into like the PSI and how much you lose based on the height of that drone and flying. He'll share a little bit more of that as we progress through the slide deck. Skylights, signage, silos, even billboards in some cases, we've executed the drone, water towers, water tanks. We actually have a customer in the Midwest market right now that has grain silos, and they were a global customer and very much interested in, hey, is this an opportunity for us to use the drone to clean these facilities? And as much as I would like to say yes, my answer is always, hey, let us come out, take a look at your facility. We do it free of charge and see if this is an application that makes sense. We also do many, many drone demos. We did one up in our Cleveland market not too long ago. We did one in Akron Children's Hospital. We do a lot of business with Cleveland Clinic, and we're happy to come to your area and show you what this drone is capable of. Ideal candidates. This is an important one, but I've already said it enough. The best option is to have us take a look at your facility and help. But to give you a little bit of perspective, low to mid-rise buildings. This isn't going to work on a 300-foot building, right? There are standard processes and procedures when you get to a certain height, just to make sure that you're keeping your people safe and we're doing things the right way. But your 6-story buildings, you know, anything to like kind of 150 to 200 feet is a pretty ideal target. Complex architectural structures, again, where maybe there's not a great place to tie in. You don't have anchor support. The drone is a great alternative. You know, limited access. We did the Lowe's corporate headquarters in Charlotte, North Carolina. They had one side of their building that is covered by water, and there's no way you could get a lift on the backside of that building. So the drone was a great alternative to bring in and be able to clean the backside of a corporate office that had never been able to be cleaned before. And then, you know, routine maintenance. So most facilities, most buildings traditionally get their windows cleaned anywhere from maybe 4 times a year, you know, sometimes monthly, but really 4 times a year is probably what we see on a most regular basis. This drone gives you the ability to have it more frequent or more often. If you're in a place where you struggle with like a lot of tropical storms or weather, maybe you're on the coastline and you'd rather have, you know, maintenance on your facility on a monthly basis. The drone is a really good cost-effective alternative to that than your traditional window cleaning. We also have customers that will do a big window cleaning in, say, the spring and right before the winter. But, you know, every other month they have us come in and do facade cleaning with the drone to keep the building maintenance up to par. So there's a lot of different programs that we can build based on your facility. But this is really what your ideal candidates are. Now, if you start getting into huge metro markets, you know, take a downtown Atlanta, right? New York City, you're going to struggle with the drone because the drone's got to be able to take off based on a signal, and it has to be able to lift off the base. And when you put it in between large buildings, it's not capable of doing that. So if you jump to the next slide, Madison, this tells you a little bit more of those limitations and challenges. So those urban downtown environments, that's exactly what I was talking about. Downtown Chicago. Now you get out into the suburbs, absolutely, this is an option. But in between 2 high-rise buildings is really not going to be an ideal environment for the drone. Restricted airspace. Now look, there are a lot of different applications. If you are a drone pilot or looking to hire a drone pilot, that can be downloaded that give you the opportunity to request use of your drone in a certain airspace. And most of the time, the results are instantaneous. But let's say you're around an airport, for instance, there are definitely more restrictions. But what's nice is some of these applications that you can download will give you all of the information that you need. And surprisingly enough, even around a lot of airports, you still have the ability to fly those drones. And again, use the applications that you can find to help you sort out if it's an area where you're going to have more restrictions or not. And those will provide you with a lot of different guidelines. Weather conditions, just like anything, will be a factor. If it's extremely windy, it can be very challenging to fly that drone. So we have to take that into consideration. I mentioned earlier height restrictions. You start getting into that 200 to 250 feet, you'll start losing a little bit of PSI pressure on that drone, and it makes it not an ideal candidate. And then deep clean. So if you haven't cleaned your windows or your facade for a significant amount of time, you're really going to need a deep clean to be able to get you back to that original state. And then you could easily maintain it with a drone. But if you haven't cleaned the windows and the facade for a really long time, you're actually going to need that personal touch where somebody is actually creating the agitation on that window to get it back or close back to its original state. And then we can come in with the drone and again, maintain it. So I will say this one more time. The best thing to do is let us look at your facility, make a recommendation, and create a program for you based on the solutions that we offer. So I'm going to pass this one over to Tyler. He operates these. You mentioned earlier that he is licensed. He has had a drone in his market in Cincinnati for quite some time. He is a much stronger expert on how to fly this and how it works than I am. So I'll pass it over to him to get a little bit more into the detail.
Yep. So the drone cleaning system is going to use a tethered aerial system. That's going to consist of the drone flying and typically a pressure washer line that's going to go down to a support unit on the ground. That support unit is going to send pressurized water up to the drone, and it's going to spray that at the building. That water is deionized. So if you think when you're going through a car wash, you get that spot-free rinse. Once you get all the dirt off of it, deionized water drying out isn't going to leave anything left on the building. So as long as all that dirt came off in the first place, the water droplets remaining on the window are going to dry clear. Now we can do a couple other types of cleanings with that. Soft wash, if you wanted to clean masonry, or if you wanted to clean, the bands below windows is a very common one. We can use soft wash to do that, or pressure washing. The soft wash is going to use a chemical cleaning. Pressure washing, just like on the ground, is going to use high pressure. And that's going to be between 3,200 and 4,000 PSI, and we typically run between 6 and 10 gallons a minute. Licensed operators are required to fly this. You need a FAA Part 107 license. And these drones are going to have collision avoidance. We don't want them getting too close to the building where they could interact with it and cause issues. So they have a collision avoidance radar that will keep them roughly 9 feet off the building in most cases. So this is a great solution for an area that's kind of hard to get to. These solar panels, normally you'd have to rent a big boom lift to get over it. Boom lifts obviously come with some risk of property damage, rolling over sidewalk and pavers, and they're also harder for actual employees to get to service these solar panels. So the drone's a really good solution here. It's going to be able to get in there faster. It's going to be safer for properties. And it's a very cost-effective solution for this. And this is kind of a unique situation where not just is the drone going to be a cost-effective solution, but it's solar panels that get cleaned are going to produce more electricity because they don't have dirt blocking the sun. So this is a really good use case for the drone.
And this kind of shows, Tyler, too, I've got this question before on like, can the drone angle itself down? And I think this shows a good idea, or like a good visual of the fact that it actually can do that.
Yes. So this is a good example of a complex architectural feature. This is a very tall cross, I think, out in Indiana. Getting up to this normally would require the use of a very tall lift, and those lifts are fairly expensive. So something that might not be very time consuming, you still have to pay for a very expensive lift to get up to reach this. The drone can reach this a lot easier. You might not have to pay for that lift, and even if the drone's a little bit more expensive, it's going to probably be quicker. So you generally are going to have some fairly competitive pricing on this, even before you remove the lift from that scenario. This can also get to things where, maybe this is on a hill and you can't get a lift up to this. So the drone's going to be a really great use case for that, where you couldn't actually access this in any other way. Or you might have to do something like build scaffolding up to get to it. The drone can handle these kind of situations with ease. So a couple quick stats. So the flight height, you can get about 150 feet above ground level. And the limiting factor for that is going to be water pressure, but also the FAA has a limit on the weight of the drone. It can go to 55 pounds. And as we're dragging that hose up the sides of the buildings, you're gaining weight. Typically around 120 feet, we need to switch to a smaller diameter hose. That will reduce the amount of weight we're carrying on the drone, and that'll allow us to get to 150 feet typically. Now, there are situations maybe we aren't doing window cleaning with it, and we don't need that payload, where we can get a little bit higher, and we can sometimes get around the 200-foot mark, but that's typically the limit. And your pilot's going to be able to tell you what that is when he comes out to look at your building. On a single battery charge, we're going to be able to fly about 20 minutes. It's very quick, so we can still get through quite a bit of cleaning coverage, about 300 square feet a minute. So, about 6,000 square feet of glass cleaned on a single battery charge. Now we are looking into a tethering system that will allow us to clean a longer period of time and get more coverage out of that. As I mentioned earlier, for the glass cleaning, we're typically looking at 3,200 to 4,000 PSI, but when we're doing something like soft wash, we're typically going after surfaces that, maybe don't want that kind of pressure on, like stucco or other things where we don't want to put that kind of pressure, and we can switch to our low pressure soft washing system, and that's going to be closer to 300 PSI, and that's where it comes out of the drone. When it actually makes it to the building, it's even lower PSI from there. So you don't typically have to worry about the drone damaging more delicate siding. So we get this a lot. Does the drone record footage? We get into situations like hospitals, apartments, nursing homes, where we'll get the question, is this recording? And the answer is no. These drones don't have the capability of recording. The camera that they do have just provides some feedback to the pilot to let them position themselves. But if you get into a position where people are worried about that, we can remove that camera most of the time. It's not necessary for the pilot to do the cleaning, and it's not a safety issue to remove that camera. Are you licensed and insured? Yes. All of our pilots have to have their Part 107 license, and our company carries comprehensive aviation insurance. And we have additional internal training to make sure our pilots know what they're looking for when they're on site. And these drones are very safe, especially compared to the methods you would traditionally reach these buildings at. They have the anti-collision sensor. They have fail safes for emergency landings, and you don't have a person up in these areas that traditionally you might have to use a big piece of heavy machinery to get to, or reach by ropes, or get swing stages to access. The drone is a much safer method of cleaning. And compared to traditional cleaning, the drone doesn't always do as good of a job. And a good pilot's going to be able to tell you what kind of job it will or won't be able to do, more likely will or won't be able to do in a particular situation. It's best for preventative maintenance solutions. There are plenty of applications on things that are very dirty that we need to get much cleaner, but it's not necessarily going to do as good of a job as traditional cleaning. It's going to be more like a water-fed pole system, where you want to use that to maintain your building rather than go in and take construction debris off. It's not going to remove that. So it's something where you want to get it kind of on a schedule to keep your building looking nice. So when you're looking for contractors, you want to make sure your contractor has a Part 107 license. That is what the FAA makes you go through to make sure you know what airspace you're able to fly in, what to do to prevent people underneath from getting injured. So you're going to want to make sure your contractor has that license. You want to make sure they have aviation liability insurance. That if they don't have that, insurance may not cover any kind of issues that could arise. You want to make sure they have actual experience in window cleaning. We've run into plenty of situations where, maybe a pressure washing company picked up one of these drones, and they go in and they're not using the right equipment, they're not using the right filters, and the customer hires them in, they do the job, and it doesn't turn out well. If you hire somebody with good expertise in those cleaning applications, they're going to be able to give you a much better service. And you want to make sure your company actually has safety procedures they can document and on-site planning ahead of time. You don't want to just start flying these things and get yourself into a situation that you don't need to be in. You want to actually go in and do a pre-site inspection. Make sure that there's a plan to safely address these. You might need a management of traffic plan if you're in an urban area. Make sure your pilot's not going to like back out into the roadway or something like that. So site assessment, airspace and FAA review is very important. Job site safety plan, and coordinating access with, maybe you're on a hospital and you have med flight or something. You want to make sure you have a group that's going to coordinate access with nearby helipads and things like that to make sure that you're not interfering with other air traffic. So, and then when we go to do the project execution, you want to make sure you have a secure work zone. You want to do a test cleaning area before you start any kind of work to make sure you know what the outcome is going to be. You want to make sure that there are no other operations around where you're cleaning, and you need to be continuously monitoring the weather. You don't want to get into a situation where there's lightning or high winds kick up. Wind does affect the drone pretty significantly. Normally, that's just going to prevent the cleaning from coming out well. But you're going to want to make sure not to fly in poor weather conditions. And then finally, you want a company that's going to come in and inspect the quality. With this kind of technology, just like a spot-free car wash, there are times where if you didn't rinse everything off initially, it might not turn out well, and you might have to do a second pass. So you want a company that's going to come in and actually look at the windows afterwards, make sure it came out well, do that second pass if they need to, and ensure the quality is there. So these are a couple of projects that we've done in the past. This is Dayton Children's Hospital. They had an issue where there was a paperwork issue on their certification. They couldn't clean the windows via RDS like they normally would. It delayed the service pretty significantly. Dirt and spider webs were accumulating. They're right next to a freeway and a river, so spider webs were accumulating quite a bit. But they couldn't get to the glass to clean it, and it wasn't looking good. It was looking pretty dirty. So we were able to get the drone out there to clean those off. That it was able to do it just as quick as normal. And as you can see here, even with the windows being as dirty they were, the outcome of it was significantly better. It was not 100%. They didn't expect it to be. This is one of those cases where it was like very, very dirty. But it was 99% better. And at this point, they've elected that this is going to be the way they would like the building cleaned in the future, because the outcome is acceptable to them and it is a major safety advantage. So this is out at Hunt Hall in Charlotte, North Carolina. They don't have anchorage up on that rooftop. The pavers up on that rooftop are not something that you can walk across. Lifts are very expensive compared to traditional methods, and they provide their own issues with potential for damage to pavers and safety. So the drone was chosen. It's a very cost-effective solution for window cleaning here. It can access the building quicker, safer, and easier, and provide a really good cleaning on this kind of building. This is kind of your ideal candidate for drone cleaning, where you have a nice courtyard to fly in, and you have windows that are difficult to access. But another thing they had here, I believe, is because this is campus, they have a lot of people in, so getting in and out quickly was a priority for them. The drone's going to be able to get in and out of there a lot quicker than more traditional methods. A lift might need to be parked out there for a week at a time. The drone might be able to come in here and clean it in a day or two. And the outcome is, just effective removal of a lot of pollen, and the speed of the cleaning was very useful for the client. This is a example on the Lonza building in South Carolina of soft washing. So soft washing is a chemical cleaning method. this building was difficult to access around the perimeter with a boom lift. There's heavy truck traffic, so they needed to coordinate around that without having to shut down operations for extended period of times. And previous cleaning needed a ladder to achieve the same work. So that's very labor intensive. It's extremely time consuming. So we used the drone to clean this. It was able to get in and out of the campus much, much quicker in just 4 days. And it, as you can see, removed the mold and mildew buildup despite the limited access. So this is the Bass Pro Shop Pyramid in Memphis, Tennessee. We've cleaned this building for years. That's a metal on the outside of the building. It would normally take a person on ropes, a single person rappelling down kind of the corner of the building and doing individual rappels down the side. And it was extremely time consuming. One side would typically take a crew member an entire month rappelling the structure. And it was a very complex rigging work. So this is a case where while the drone couldn't go all the way to the top of this building's around 300 feet, it was able to clean the lower 2/3 of the building. And the cleaning time went from 2 months to clean this to 2 weeks. This is down at the Kentucky Center for the Performing Arts in Louisville. This had very complex architecture. The anchors on the top of that rounded roof structure were not adequate for rappelling off of. The surrounding surfaces had limited weight that they could hold. It was the top of a parking deck. So you couldn't put big boom lifts up on this either. And it was too tall for something like a water fed pole at the peak there. It also had issues on those brown bands there where there were spider webs and things like that that would build up inside those that would be hard to remove with a water fed pole, even for the portion you could get to. We came out there with the drone. It was able to clean this glass off very well. It took a couple passes, but it took significantly less time. It was much less disruptive. And the results were fantastic on this building. So this is more of an urban area. And we talked about access issues to in urban environments. So this particular building has access issues on all 4 sides. You can't install anchorage on the top of this building. It was built in the 1800s. It's got wooden upper area, so you can't put anchorage down to it without significant cost issues. And that side looks out over the river and the waterfront and the ballparks in this area. So that was a area that the tenants were really concerned when the glass wasn't cleaned, that they couldn't really see out. So even if we weren't able to get to all 4 sides of the building due to its proximity to other buildings, it still had a good benefit for the client here where we could clean off the side that they were the most concerned about. And not just that, but we could clean it a lot faster and safer than we would have bringing in a 135-foot boom lift like we would have needed to. So if your property has, limited roof anchorage, if it's hard to access, if it's got unique architectural features, especially the taller, skinnier things, steeples, signs, large crosses on the top of a hill, or safety concerns with traditional access. And that can include paperwork issues with rope descent. It's great for routine exterior maintenance needs. And if you need to get in and out very quickly and minimize tenant or operational disruption, and these are great use cases for the drone. All right. I think we saw some questions in the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tyler and Brandis. I'll go through and we can answer these. And of course, if you have any questions specific to your building, feel free to email us or you can scan that QR code and put your building address in, and we'd be happy to take a look. So first from Lynn, do we have plans to expand to Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C.? I'm guessing that's, oh, Brandis, you're on mute.
Thanks. So DC is a unique environment. They have more restrictions in that area than you do in other typical markets. So we've actually had to partner with another company in the market there that has the ability to fly in or around that DC market. So the answer to that question is yes. We just have to work with a partner that is an approved licensed operator in that DC market. But the answer is yes.
Awesome. And then Paul asks, are city permits required for drone cleaning?
Not in every situation. Some cities will require them. You'll see them oftentimes around college campuses or ballparks. A lot of the times when you get down into more of an urban area, you might need a management of traffic plan, and that will require a permit typically.
Awesome. And then Cindy asks, what about exterior brick? They're building our historic old mills.
Yes, the drone is very good for exterior brick. We can pressure wash that. We can soft wash that. If it's something like a mill and it's going to have food, you'd probably opt more for the pressure washing side than the soft washing, but it's definitely something we can address.
And then Sam asks, what about exterior and interior glass balconies?
Balconies can be tricky at times. If they're not cleared off, we don't want to risk damaging anything that might be sitting on the balcony. And I wouldn't probably use this for the interior of the balcony. That's probably going to be more of a situation you're going to want somebody to come up to the balcony and clean that at that location.
And we do, you know, assuming your residents or tenants could clear those off, it does work better and it's more cost effective than like we typically don't put people in a balcony. But you know, there are situations even where we've been asked to do those and based on, you know, what the requirements are of the property manager of that building and what the tenants are agreeing to, you know, we'll take a look at other solutions that'll be helpful for balconies. But typically, if you want to use it for this, it's better than nothing, but we always ask that those balconies are cleared off to have the most effective outcome that you're looking for. When you have things within that space, you know, sometimes you can't get around the runoff and making sure that it looks clean and pristine when we're finished.
Right. And then Jacob asks, I think we answered this one, but how close to the building can you get and what is the required payload on the drones in order to perform these types of cleanings? Do you have the ability to control PSI gauge to control pressure?
Yes, so we are able to get about 9 feet from the building. That's where our anti-collision radar kicks in. The load limit is 55 pounds. That's an FAA requirement. And as far as pressure, yes, we have some control over the pressure on site. It's kind of an on-off situation though. You're going to have the high pressure window cleaning side with the deionized water, and then you're going to have a soft washing side, and that's going to be the lower, 300 or around 300 psi cleaning.
And then we had a question about can it handle Orlando, Florida specific challenges, humidity, mold, pollen buildup?
Yes, that's definitely something that the drone would be able to address.
I think we showed that. Yeah. And then from Lynn, how much time does the drone spend on each window?
That's going to kind of vary from window to window, but I would say typically for like a bay of windows, it's going to spend maybe a minute or two.
And we had from Andrew, can the gutters be cleaned?
Not with the drone. Like we could clean like the outside of the gutter, but we're not going to be able to clean the inside of the gutter. So if you have like some discoloration or mold or algae that's building up on the outside of the gutter, it could probably address that. But we're not going to be able to probably spray out the gutter and effectively remove stuff that's inside of it.
And then from Michael, I had a question about the weight and mobility of the water tank.
Mobility of the water tank. I'm not sure what the question is there. So we have a water tank on the The support system for the drone, that's typically going to be like a 300-gallon water tank. You're not going to want to drive that in like soft, muddy grass, but drier grass, stuff like that, we can drive that on. The drone's payload that you're seeing in the video, that's pretty small. It's only a couple gallons. That maybe weighs an additional 5 or 6 pounds.
And we have like a standardized truck system that we have equipped that kind of goes along with the drone so that we can execute effectively, is what Tyler's, referring to.
Yep. And I just saw the question come across there. So with the fragile pavers, we have a lot of hose, so we can run the hose from a fair distance away as well, where we don't have to drive on those pavers. The truck's going to weigh a lot less than than like a boom lift or something like that. We're probably looking in the trailer weight's probably 3,000 pounds on top of the vehicle weight. And we can put down rubber matting like you would for a lift as well with that truck if you're very concerned. But if you have if you know the pounds per square foot that those pavers are able to take, we can always take a look at that and see if it's a solution on your facility.
And then next, is the pressure adjustable on site in case of a mixture of antique restored windows and new windows?
It is. For the window cleaning, you're typically going to use the higher pressure washing, but we can reduce that on site some to try to address that. We would definitely walk into that situation carefully and make sure we're not going to have an adverse outcome when we're cleaning it.
Yeah, and then from Jason, does the drone recognize if a window is left open by accident on the day of cleaning?
It does not. Hopefully that's something the pilots are typically looking for that. But no, the drone would not recognize that on its own.
Yeah, and what about window screens? Do they need to remove those like typical?
You'll get a better outcome if you remove window screens, but it can flush through the window screen and do some cleaning of that. But I would recommend removing the window screens if possible. But it will do some through a window screen. You can actually see it in this loop here where they're cleaning through a screen.
And we are capable of removing screens if that's something you want to take a look at. But certainly it's the most cost-effective opportunity for yourself or your tenant residents to take care of that.
All right, and then given the drones are already tethered to the ground by a hose, why not use the same tether or an additional cable to provide continuous electric power from the ground rather than relying on onboard batteries with limited endurance?
Yes, that is in the works currently.
That's the next innovation. So we're not far from moving that direction. Our truck system that we have, Tyler will have to correct me. I think we keep like 8 batteries on it. So we rotate those out as we bring the drone down. And
Yes.
We've been working with the company out of Charlotte now for 2 years. And our feedback with them was that we come up with another solution, and we're not far away from launching that tethered solution.
And then I'll take a last question here, but if you have any more, feel free to add them to this chat and we'll follow back up with you, or again, just reach out to info@valcourt.net. And if you ask a question about a particular property, I'll reach out to you and loop in the correct contact person so you can work with them. Is the drone cleaning available in the Boston market? They didn't see the drone icon in Boston.
So we have not officially launched one in the Boston market yet, but we have been traveling up there and using the drone in that market as needed. But it is on target to get one in the area. I would just say, based on where your property is, if you have a specific one that you're thinking of, certainly reach out and let us know, and we'll share whether or not we can travel and bring the drone up to that market, but we certainly have before.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. As a reminder, we will be sending out this recording to whoever registered, and you feel free to share it with anyone else who may be interested in drone cleaning. Thanks again, and have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.